never nice being last, or the afterthought, or the also-ran. And when it comes to the executive class of cars, that's exactly what Volvo is. Think executive cars and you normally think Mercedes-Benz or BMW or Audi, and hardly ever that other brand from Sweden. But they're looking to change all of that with this, the new S60. And by all accounts, they're aiming it straight at that brand that claims it is sheer driving pleasure. The press blah on this new sedan is more about the car's dynamics than anything else. It mentions the engines, it mentions the styling, but the emphasis is on how good this car is to drive. They've certainly made it look like it's more serious than the Volvos of old. Before you even drive so much as a meter, you get the impression that this is a more dynamic Volvo than you might be used to. The front end is more aggressive, the whole shape is more athletic, and yet it hasn't lost that sort of Scandinavian point of difference. I'm not sure if I like the look of this car yet. I've driven the C70 that shares a similar face, but somehow that car pulls it off a little more easily. The rear is a definite improvement with its fiber optic elements and tapered lenses adding a stylish element. This car does have great dimensions though. All the lines and shapes fit together really nicely, and it does have a certain something about it, even if that something might just be that it doesn't look like anything else. So while the outside is all new, the inside is all pretty much old. The floating center console is still here, the seats are the same, the instrument cluster is the same, the steering wheel is minusculely different. The only exciting bits here are the center screen and some new materials. But if you've driven a Volvo in the last 10 years, you'll know exactly what to expect. No, it's not bad, but it's getting a little predictable. The materials, the old and the new ones, are as good as ever, with decent plastics and just the right blend of leather and smart accents. The car's systems are a little easier to access and use thanks to the center display, and they've added a split front camera system just like BMW's. But the clever Swedes don't have two cameras for their setup, they've got one. All the trademark Volvo safety pieces are there. The four-letter acronyms are sprayed across various points of the cabin like Euro NCAP graffiti. There's a European market hangover in the S60. The car comes standard with run-flat tyres and a puncture repair kit. You can order a space saver spare as an accessory, but the problem is there's no predetermined space for the space saver, so it becomes more of an inconvenient convenience, if you see what I mean. With that lump in the boot, we struggle to get our gear in, and believe me, for a TV crew, RPM travels light. But the travelling itself is surprisingly good, thanks in no small part to the engine. This is the top-of-the-line T6, a 6-cylinder 3-litre twin-scroll turbo with 224 kilowatts and a very mouth-watering 440 Newton-meters. Now, the rest of Europe will get a whole range of engines, but in South Africa, initially, the S60 will be offered with this, a 2-litre turbo and the D5 diesel. The figures for this flagship make for good reading. 0 to 100 takes just 6.5 seconds, and the top speed comes in at 250 kilometers an hour. The only gearbox option is the 6-speed Geartronic Auto. It's smooth and almost imperceptible unless you're using it in manual mode and travelling at a fair rate, which is pretty easy in this car, although that's not surprising really. No doubt Volvo have made some good engines in the past. I mean, the T5 2.5-litre turbo was fantastic, but they never really packaged it with anything that could do the engine justice. But now, they've got the T6, which is strong and super smooth. They've got a ride setup and a chassis setup that's really good, and they've got all-wheel drive. Traction to all four wheels helps a lot in these kinds of conditions. Twisty roads in the Southern Cape with a bit of moisture around to add to the excitement. And usually a Volvo needs all the excitement it can get, but not this thing. Lots of grip and a decent feel for what the sports-tuned chassis is doing. I always approach a drive in a Volvo with a bit of trepidation and prepare myself to be underwhelmed, but this is just so un-Volvo-like. I mean, it doesn't overwhelm you with its nerdy safety systems or its swarmy Swedishness. It just gets on with the job of being a really good car to drive. This is the first Volvo that I honestly enjoy driving. Looks like they've finally got it right. What makes it even more enjoyable is that you don't even have to try to make it feel good. Just keep your foot planted, feel the turbo shove from low down in the rev range, and enjoy the ride setup as it soaks up some pretty challenging conditions. I found myself wearing a stupid grin a few times after getting through a corner with zero fuss, where I was seriously expecting understeer or tire complaints or electronic interference, or all three. Volvo has always had some kind of appeal, but unfortunately for them, it was never mass, which might explain why at various times in their history they've needed financial help from the likes of Ford and lately, Geely of China. But at this end of the market, it's not good enough to make something that looks a little different. It has to compete at the very least on every level with the major competition. And now with the S60 T6, Volvo have finally got a genuine alternative to the German options. The new S60 is one of Volvo's best performing cars to date, and that goes for everything from the impressive turbo motor to the well-tuned chassis. The interior carries the company's trademark look, which is starting to get a bit dated now, and the optional space saver spare is impractical.